Hello, everyone, and happy Wednesday. My name is Olivia Harp from Prosperity Now, and I'm really excited to welcome you to From Startup to Success, how to support entrepreneurs along the journey. So, we're going to get into today's conversation pretty quickly because we have a lot of great information that we want to share, and I cannot wait to introduce you to today's speaker. But before we jump in, I want to direct your attention to your Q&A box. We want to do a quick chat icebreaker just to get those juices flowing and ensure that everyone's in the room and thinking about today's topic. So, what's one piece of advice you often share with entrepreneurs or small business owners? And for some of us, this might lead us down a walk down memory lane, but we want to hear from you first and foremost before we kick things off. What's one piece of advice you often share with entrepreneurs or small business owners? And please feel free to drop your reflections and responses in the Q&A box, and we'll go back and refer to that later on. So again, my name is Olivia Harp. Welcome to today's learning opportunity. I'm going to give you a few tips just to get you comfortable on the platform and comfortable interacting with us. So this webinar is being recorded and will be mailed out to registrants. And while you are muted to ensure sound quality, there'll be other opportunities for you to speak up if you would like to. But in the meantime, we would like you to use the questions box to share your thoughts, reflections, questions, comments, at any time throughout today's webinar. And if you experience any technical issues, please email us at gotomeeting@prosperitynow.org. So we want you to get cozy today. Join us from a quiet space, grab a snack or a coffee. I know we're all joining from different areas, so some of you may lend to something a little cooler, while others of us might want some warm coffee. We want you to engage us again in the questions and comments box so that Sadie and I can see everything that you have to say throughout today's learning opportunity. And also, we want you to walk away with something that you're going to do or apply to your role. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Sadie to come off of camera, and I'm going to give her like maybe 30 seconds or so just to introduce herself. We're really excited to have you, and thanks again for joining us. So I'll stop talking and let you step in.
Thanks, Olivia. Hi, everybody. My name is Sadie Sheffer. I am a multi-business entrepreneur. So I'm the founder and CEO of Bread SRSLY, which is a gluten-free sourdough bread company. We turned 14 this year, so we've been around a while. And I'm also the founder and CEO of Hire Like a Badass, which is a digital course all about how to hire, how to improve your hiring systems, how to build great teams, because I love hiring and team building. And Bread SRSLY was actually named one of the best small businesses to work for by the San Francisco Business Times. So we're really, really proud of what we've built and the team culture and the people aspect of what we do. So I'm excited to be here, and I love helping other small business owners and building my community and supporting my community in that way. And Olivia, you are on mute.
Yes, I am. Of course I am. So, thank you so much for that introduction. This is our second conversation together, and I always enjoy hearing a little bit more about how your bio kind of expands as we meet along the way. So, I'm excited to not only continue these conversations in this relationship, but just to see how your accomplishments just continue to grow that list. So, again, thank you
Thank you.
for being with us. Of course, thank you for being with us today. We know you have a lot of valuable information that's not only helpful to, of course, entrepreneurs, but more specifically, people who are looking to support entrepreneurs and small business owners. So I'm going to kick us off with our first questions. And this is kind of a part two to our chat icebreaker, but I want to hear from you. What are some of the most valuable resources available to newer entrepreneurs, and how can practitioners and organizations help connect business owners to them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question and it's probably a big list, but I would say my main thing is that there's no one size fit all solution or like database or anything for entrepreneurs. For someone like me, who's not really a researcher, not really a planner, the most valuable type of resource is a person who can listen to me and hear my needs and then direct me to exactly what I need. So maybe that's like, hey, I need to know how to permit XYZ, or what kind of business license to register for, or whether to be an LLC or a C Corp, that kind of thing, and have an actual person who can you kind of do the download, direct me to either the person that I need to talk to, or the list of resources, or the link to apply for something. That kind of research, I think, especially for people who are starting out and who are like not totally sure, maybe they're testing out the waters, anything that you can do to help lower the barrier to entry, make it like a little less activation energy for them to jump in, is going to be super duper valuable. There's also amazing resources such as Pacific Community Ventures, who offers business advising pro bono. I think that they like for their entrepreneurs to have been in business for about a year before they enter that program. But that's an amazing program that I've used since probably year 2 of Bread Seriously, and has been really supportive at different times of the life cycle of the business. And they also have a Good Jobs, Good Business toolkit. So for people who are venturing into hiring, or who already have a small team and want to learn more about benefits, or vacation time, or like any of the things around hiring and culture building, that's a great resource as well.
Okay. Lots of great tidbits and notes to take and apply back for people who are supporting entrepreneurs. And I feel like this next question is a follow-up to something that you said, because a lot of times whenever I'm interacting with small business owners and entrepreneurs, they often speak as if the regulatory environments in which their businesses interact with changes at a slower pace than the world or the need in which they are operating. So, what are some tips or tricks, or even perspectives, right, or approaches that practitioners can implement to help um, balance those two worlds, right? Like that stagnant regulatory process world, and then also the world in which our businesses exist, that is ever changing and it always has new tools and trends and even consumers.
Sure. Well, on the regulatory side, it's there's also an advantage to it never changing, which is that you know what to do.
Mhm.
If you know, for example, how to help, you know, businesses with 0 to 5 employees do this particular set of paperwork, and that set of paperwork is not changing, then putting together some kind of manual or like easy to use guide that's user friendly is going to be a long-term resource that you don't have to worry about it changing. Of course, I don't know if any of us can not worry about things changing right now with the political climate. Like
Mhm.
things things are not going to stay the same, so it's a little tough time to want to put together some kind of resource like that, but some of the stuff's going to stay the same, hopefully.
Yeah.
In
Yes.
terms of like reconciling that with the outside world, I mean, I would just say I was someone who was like really scared of paperwork. Oh, the sun just came out, so my lighting's going to be really weird for a few minutes. um yeah, when I started, I was like, I'm going to hire someone to do all my paperwork. And I think paperwork is this sort of monolith for people who are starting. Like it's this big, scary black box.
Mhm.
And we don't necessarily know how to do it or how to navigate. And we think we're all bad at it. But like, really, no one's that good at it. And it's just something you have to like do and get through. And so any kind of resources that make that part easier is great. So that the entrepreneurs can really think about what's happening, what their consumers want, what their branding message is, what their value proposition is, how to respond to the climate. Um, yeah, I mean, I think part of being an entrepreneur is making your own educated guesses about what's going to happen and doing that forecasting, whether that's like on a spreadsheet, which can be scary to people, or just, listing your assumptions about what's about to happen or about what you think the future will hold, and then strategizing based on those assumptions, right? There's nobody who knows what's going to happen, but often we get trapped in thinking that there is, or that we need to wait and see what happens rather than go with our gut or go with our own assumptions,
Mhm.
and value our own assumptions. So I would say uh, anything you can do to validate the small business owners you work with is going to be valuable and have like really long term effects in
Mhm.
helping that entrepreneur trust their own instincts.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you talk a little bit about validation, it reminds me of previous conversations where it's just like confidence is key in this world, right, of entrepreneurship and small businesses. If you can maintain that confidence and also maintain a support system around you that validates your skills and what you have to offer and even the direction or the vision of your business, then that will often exceed the specific skills needed in this one phase, right? In this one chapter. So I'm really happy that you were able to point that out because that's something that we always go back to. And something else that we always go back to, it almost feels like a trending term, but we're always talking about access to capital, access to capital, access to capital. And it's often seen as a common hurdle for small business owners and entrepreneurs. And so I would like to know a little bit about not only just what strategies or funding opportunities should practitioners be aware of, even though we'd love to hear that too, if there are some things that come to mind, but um, what are some ways that entrepreneurs serving in institutions can help entrepreneurs better position their businesses to attract funding opportunities?
Sure. I think before I answer that, I want to say that in addition to access to capital, I think what entrepreneurs really need is understanding of different capital vehicles. Um, the number of people in my community who are scared of taking on debt or who don't understand that equity is a more expensive form of capital in the long run or something like that, or who think that the only way to get equity investors is to give up control of their company is staggering. And I don't think anyone's doing a great job of putting that education out there and those resources to help people understand what form of capital is right for them at their stage of business, and with whatever their business financials look like. So I think we could do a much better job there. And then I think access to capital will be a little less daunting because people will know what kind of capital they're trying to access and they'll know how to access it a
Mhm.
little better because they'll be applying for things that are naturally a better fit for their stage of business. So I was personally very scared of debt when I started because I grew up in a household with a lot of credit card debt. And so debt equals bad, right? And I think a lot
Mhm.
of people in America have that experience and are scared of the debt piece and therefore aren't building their credit. So if they did need to get debt, it would be really challenging as well. So uh, resources and education around different capital vehicles is, I would say, number one. And then information about how to build your credit as well, along with that. And then from there, positioning, I think it's going to be really about understanding the particular type of capital that you're trying to access and understanding who you're trying to access it from. So, for example, if you're looking for equity investors, really like painting the picture of who your ideal investor is and what they're looking for, almost like designing your target market for your product or service, so that you're not just doing, what do people call it, the spray and pray method
Mhm.
of fundraising, just emailing everybody whether they're a good fit or not,
Yeah.
because having the wrong investor is probably worse than not getting any investment in the first place.
Okay. Yeah. Words to live by. Absolutely. I really appreciate that because when you're right, when you think about access to capital, it almost sounds like um, people want all the doors to be open, right? When in actuality, you need to focus on the one door that's right for you, making sure that you have the correct investor.
Yeah, and it's almost like it sort of flips the power structure a little bit. Like access to capital sounds like, what capital am I eligible for? Or
Mhm.
like, what am I allowed to ask for? Or something like that. Whereas looking at yourself first and say, what do I want? And then going and finding it gives you a bit more like power almost when you're going to ask for it. Like, I've done my homework. This is what I need. I have a really clear ask, rather than showing up and being like, "What can you give me?" or something like that. So
Mhm.
I'm hoping that that would also be empowering to the individuals who are making the ask.
Yeah, absolutely. And we spent a lot of time talking about small business owners and I guess not to be redundant, but like the business of a business, right? But we also have to talk about the team members that keep those businesses going, right? When we talk about employees and jobs and what makes a good job. So I would be interested in just knowing about some key strategies that you've seen or that you've implemented, right, to help employees not only succeed in their role, but also build long term career growth and economic stability.
Yeah, it took me a long time to get there. I Bread Seriously was like my first real job. And so I didn't really have an example of what I was looking at or looking for in terms of like building a company culture or putting together management structures and things like that. So it was a lot of trial and error and a lot of turnover while I made errors.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm very happy with what we have now. I'm very proud of it. So I would say invest in your people, invest particularly in your managers, getting them adequate leadership training, whether that's from you or from an external resource if you are not the person to be doing that training. And it's totally okay if you're not the person. You don't need to know how to do everything in your own business. But there's a lot of great leadership resources out there. There's a lot of great books. If you have the type of team who is excited to learn and read books, maybe some folks who are salaried who are not charging you for their hours of reading the books or something like that. Dare to Lead is one of my favorite books on leadership skills and company culture.
Mhm.
So that's Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. And that really changed my whole outlook on being a manager and being a leader and building my culture. So that was a pretty momentous read for me. I actually had my team read it. We did a little book club with it. And it, yeah, transformed our company culture as well. So once you have managers in place and can be giving them resources and investing in their growth, they can do the same for the people who are reporting to them. I'm a big fan of the concept of servant leadership. So basically, leaders are there to serve their teams um, and provide the things that their team needs. So I really think of my job as making sure that my leadership team has the tools and resources they need. And I'm like the snowplow that can clear obstacles so that they can do what they do best without having to jump through hoops. Um, so that kind of mentality also goes a long way to instilling that culture of service and culture of collaboration into a company culture. Um, and then just ironing out like how do people get promotions and raises and all of those kind of little pieces that you
Mhm.
need to set up a workplace where people want to stay long term, where they feel respected, where they feel invested in, where they feel seen and heard, welcoming people's input, inviting them to collaborate on changes and projects that will affect them. All of these little things will build kind of the emotional side of your company culture where people feel welcomed and feel a sense of belonging, and then back it up with the money side where they get holidays, they get paid vacation, they get sick time, they get raises, they get promotions. They see people who look like them in positions of power in the organization. All of that creates the ecosystem where people want to stick around and want to grow with the company.
Yeah, thank you for that. I always love when I hear you talk about, what a good job actually is, like holistically. And I learn something new every time. And something that really stuck out was like, yes, this is a great workplace filled with great people, but then you talked a little bit about that stability and that predictability of like, how do you get promotions? What's to come? Like no one has to second guess what their livelihood is going to look or feel like, right? And I think that's really important. People need to know what's going to happen next, like what's happening now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot because when someone's working for you, you're asking them to invest their time and effort and their own genius into your company. And I think it needs to be reciprocated. The company needs to invest in them as well and invest in their growth and help them pick up transferable skills. Even though you want to keep them forever, you know, help them get things that will make their resume more shiny and more attractive if they do choose to move on. And I also just want to say that that list was a lot, and it's something I've been building over years and years and years. And I did it one thing at a time. So it's not something that entrepreneurs need to, they don't need to swallow the whole ocean trying to start that. Like pick one thing and do it for a while and then pick the next thing when they're ready. And eventually you'll have all the pieces and you can have that holistic, um, good workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to turn things around and invite the audience into this conversation while Sadie, you and I are going to continue the conversation. But we want to invite you to use the question box to submit questions to Sadie in our final 5 minutes of this learning opportunity. But you can also feel free to share your thoughts with us and answer the question that you see up on the screen. So for audience members, as you work to support business owners navigating a world that is constantly shifting, what new tools, emerging trends, or changing, what new tools, emerging trends, or changing community needs are you keeping in mind? And I invite you to answer that question as well, Sadie. You talked a little bit about the current landscape in which business owners and entrepreneurs are operating. Like things aren't predictable right now. But at the same time, this is a field that can't stay still, regardless of what's happening. So, what new things or even inspiring tactics or tools have you seen come out recently to help better navigate this space?
I'm a little stumped, honestly, with this
Okay.
question. It's been all I can do to keep my head above water with, with this year is moving so fast
Mhm.
already. I would say, at least in the food industry, we're seeing a lot more like collaborations happening. Um, a lot more conversations around private labeled products and just people being more creative and more nimble about revenue
Mhm.
streams, about their offerings, to make their businesses more resilient. And, I've heard people, you know, starting to get nervous about having a huge customer, which is, I think, a very advanced thing to be nervous about. But they're nervous that, more of their eggs are in a single basket. And if that basket breaks, they're in trouble. So those are the kinds of things I think now is a time to increase resiliency in every way possible and just kind of look for those risks that are hiding in plain sight, that maybe showed up when we had an organic growth spurt without necessarily putting some strategy behind it, those kind of things. And then just really manage your cash flow. Now is a time to be very on top of your cash flow. I use a weekly cash flow model. I have friends who use a daily cash flow model. So, helping your small business owners first understand what cash flow is and why it's important and why it's different than profit. And then give them just a simple spreadsheet that they can manage by themselves, to stay on top of those cash needs is going to be really helpful.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'd like to point out because there was also a running theme in your response about being connected, right? Like we may not have all the answers or all of the solutions right now, but let's just stay close. Let's collaborate, even if we're just coming together just to talk. There's something powerful and resilient, right, about a lot of people who may not have the answers, but just agreeing to be in the same space, just agreeing to be in the same room, just agreeing to community build, because when it's time to hit the ground running, we have a really strong foundation between all of us.
Absolutely. I mean, we have to worry about the resiliency of our businesses, but the resiliency of us as people is probably even more important. Right now is not the time to burn out. Or if you are already burnt out, now is the time to heal and to take some breaks and to take some breaths. I have a lot of experience burning out and recovering from burnout in my
Mhm.
past, recent and distant past. So part of what increases my resiliency is having a strong network, having people I can lean on, having people I can commiserate with or ask help from or, talk shop with. And a lot of my network came from planting seeds. And so back to your first question, first icebreaker of like, what's some advice you often give to small business owners? It's plant those seeds and be really patient with them and nurture them. For example, I'm working on closing a deal with a company that I started talking with 9 years ago about creating this deal. And we're finally going to do it because we maintained that relationship throughout the 9 years, even if the conversation about the collaboration ebbed and flowed, right? I still like reached out and invested in that relationship. That one's a little more like tactical, I guess, but just friendships also need
Mm,
that nurturing.
yeah.
Showing up to the networking events, giving out your business cards, putting yourself out there. You might even have fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun. It's a very fun world to collaborate and just dream and get together and talk together. But yeah, we don't have many more questions, but of course, we're not going to disappear after the webinar. I hope that you keep in touch with us and continue to connect with us and learn alongside us as relates to this topic. I want to thank you, Sadie, so much. This is my second virtual conversation with you, and I always look forward to it. I hope we have more opportunities to collaborate and facilitate learning opportunities for our networks. But again, I want to thank you all for coming today. I'm going to invite you to answer the survey towards the end. Let us know how we did and what you want to see more of. And until next time, everyone, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Livia. It's a pleasure. I'll see you all next time.
Thank you. Bye.